Cool. So it's the NWC Show, episode 56, and if you would like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Zach Dynamite. Pleasure to be here on your show. Looking forward to it.
Man, thanks for taking the time out of your day, especially when everybody in Scotland is melting right now.
I don't do well in the sun, mate.
It's hats. I showed you. Well, it's horrible. Like, it's people don't realise. As I said, podcast here, it's not professional at all. Everybody knows my channel isn't professional, but Scottish people don't do well in the sun. Plus, our humidity is far too high because we have far too many trees. When people go, "Oh, we need to grow trees," like, no, we have forests and shit everywhere. Like, they cause humidity. We sweat like hell. Just cut them down.
Like the other day, I was out and it was raining and the rain was hot. I'm like, what the hell's going on? Like, it's raining and it's roasting. This is awful.
It's like, I can't put a jacket on. What am I doing? What's this all about? This doesn't make sense. But at least I'm guessing we're probably going to have a terrible winter because that's what happens in Scotland. You get that good summer,
like a decent summer, and then it's just like winter for 6 months.
So
the winter will start in like September or something. So it's fine.
Also, what I never realised as well. Is it Aberdeen that you are into? Like,
Aberdeen. Yeah.
As you can tell from my terrible accent, I'm from Glasgow, but I never realised that people from the other planets, other countries, depends, don't have like so our sun goes up like 4 o'clock in the morning and it goes down like 11, maybe 12, like fully sunset. So we don't really get a lot of darkness in the summer. Then in the winter, there's like no sun. It's like an hour of sun.
Yeah.
People in other places in the world get like normal 12 hours. I just found this out today. Like,
it's crazy, is it?
Do you know all get the same thing we get? No, it's shite. I'm moving. But the reason we're here, man, we're on topic, is the first question I always ask. It's a one you've asked like a million times. I've answered this a million times as well, which is it's always one of those pains. But get it out of the way. Is what got you into wrestling? What was that moment? You were like, these two guys in these pants, I want to do. What was that moment for you?
Well, like I dabbled a bit in wrestling in like the late 90s and like the early 2000s and stuff, but I was never like an avid fan. It was like 2003 when I watched Shawn Michaels wrestle for the first time. That's when I was like really, like it really hooked me. It was like him and Randy Orton, like a pay-per-view. I can't remember what it was. And I just saw Shawn Michaels and I was like, this guy is amazing. Like just everything he did, like from the entrance, with like the assless chaps and the pyro and stuff. And then when he got in the ring, it was just like he was like doing moonsaults, cross bodies, and like the way he was selling. I was just like, this guy is incredible. So it was that moment that really turned me into like an avid fan. So yeah, Shawn Michaels.
So if it works, you've got him to congratulate, or if it works being terrible, you've just got him to blame. So that's good, man. For me, it was quite similar. It was Sting was my one. Sting was the guy that I saw. And I was
Sting's awesome. Yeah,
this guy. It was like Channel 5, like round about that late 90s, early 2000s period.
Was it Crow Sting for you? Was that the Sting you grew up on? Yeah.
The minute I saw him, I was like, this is why I want to do this. This is the guy that I love. And to this day, I'm a huge Sting mark, even though...
I love Sting. Like, Sting's in my top 5, easily. Like, I love Sting. Like, everything, every aspect. Like, I love Surfer Sting, Crow Sting. I even like Joker Sting. Like, okay. Dug it. And, like, seeing him, like, on the recent AEW pay-per-view, like, 62 years old, like, doing, like, dives off the stage. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I love Sting, man. He's awesome.
And I think it's like Michaels as well, and they've got for different kind of eras in wrestling, they've got different stuff. So like Michaels always had like his curly hair and silly like earrings and stuff, and then it moves to like he's made badass stuff. He loses his smile, he comes back.
Yeah.
So it's weird that those two guys are probably the longest guys that have reinvented themselves in wrestling.
That's it. Like, and like another big, like I'm a big fan of Chris Jericho as well for the same reason. Like Chris Jericho always reinvents himself. Like before he ever gets stale, he's already like changing gimmick or persona or like look. And it's I admire that about guys like that know when it's time to like change things up and they never get stale or they always stay relevant. I think that's an admirable quality in pro wrestling, to be honest. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Jericho as well.
I agree with you. I was never really a huge Jericho fan. Like I enjoy his stuff. Like I think it was his late 2005, like mid 2005 run.
Yeah.
I really got into him then, but I was never like a guy who would go watch like Jericho just for the sake of it. Obviously, he was good. Like I knew he was there and I knew he was good, but I wasn't like got to go check it. And like you said, it's so cool to see them still wrestling to this day, even if obviously people rip the piss at him. But his age, he's a wee bit overweight.
The thing is, like, the one thing I don't understand is like everyone rips him for being overweight. It's like I don't think he's overweight, and he's like 50. Like, leave him alone. Like, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't matter. He's still a great wrestler. He's still a great worker. Like, you know, and it's like, you know, the man's 50. Like, if I look half as good at that at 50, I'll consider it a win. You know what I mean?
And I think just people need to stop taking wrestling so serious. That's like something that like it's changed from when I was doing it to now.
Yeah, it's like I appreciate that like fans are passionate. It's great, but like sometimes at the end of the day, it's like it's still just pro wrestling. Like folks just need to chill out a little bit. like at the end of the day, we're guys in their underwear pretending to fight. Like, let's just chill out a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Like
it's a bit much as well. See, I like doing I do my reviews and I rant about Raw because it's so easy to rant about how terrible written Raw is, but I just getting that dig in there for anybody who's watched my show. And I love ranting about it because it's so easy to moan about. But like, that's my show. I get to do. That's the whole point of this YouTube channel. Is I'm reviewing it. Yeah. I'm not that serious about wrestling. I'll watch Raw because even if it's shit, I'll still watch it because I like wrestling. I watch terrible wrestling.
Like, so one of my guilty pleasures is awful wrestling. Like, sometimes awful wrestling is the best wrestling. Like, you know, when you see a match it's no good and you're like, this is awful, but it's great because it is.
Man, something came back to me the other day, and I've not told this in the podcast, but I'll tell you since you're here. And I was at a show, and there was this match on. So I was calling out next after this match, and this guy stunk like literally was terrible. Like I was sitting watching, I was like, how the hell can I go out here and like do this? So it was like me and my best friend were going out, and then we just went out, put on this match, and it was so awkward because nobody was into it. Everybody was just raging because of how shite this other guy just ruined it. People were leaving and stuff. We were like, like a sports hall when the doors start going and the bang and stuff, and you're just like,
well, fucked it.
I still got paid. I just went back up the road, but it came to me the other day, and I was like, this is the most awkward experience I think I've ever had. You're out there, and obviously you've not really got that much on, and then it makes it even worse because they're no into it, and you're like, what did I do?
It's there's like, but sometimes like you'll just get a crowd that sometimes they're just not into it. Like, you know, I've had that, like, you know, I've went out for a match and like put something together in the back, like this will be good, this will be really good, and then you go out and it's like they're just on their hands the whole night. You're like, this is awkward. Like, or you'll do something like you think's really cool or like is like quite crowd pleasing, you'll do it, nothing. Like, I'm just gonna cuddle up and die.
one of my best friends was so he was like 6'10", 6'11", obviously built at 7 feet. It's wrestling. I've been mentioning him a lot in the show. I normally don't talk about him because he passed away, but he was born in Africa but grew up in Russia. So the accent, he was huge. He was built, and I used to go against him. So I'm like 5'11", I'm not that tall. I used to go against him, and it used to just be fun. Like we used to love going out because he was my best friend. We used to go out all the time, put on these good shows. But there was one time that we went out, and obviously I'm meant to be the babyface. He's this big, huge, coloured bad guy, and I'm like this white guy coming back trying to like win. And we were at and we just didn't do like for some reason the audience was mostly coloured black. I don't know if you're meant to call them anywhere, but he was like hated by this group of people, like full scale hated, like popcorn getting through and everything.
Nice.
And then when I fell into the audience, there was like he would clothesline me in. And they started hitting me, and I was like, what did that? Give me a bit of my side of it. And we were just like, forget this, and we just like walked away. Obviously, after we finished the match, but it was just like, why are you hating? Like, I'm literally being a good guy. And they were like, we hate white people. And then he was, don't let me hate you, I know. And I was like, all right, I guess that's just
at that
just happening.
You know what I mean? At that point, there's no winning. Just
I
get
was
through the
like,
match, be done with it.
so a lot of people that I love talking to news, like in Scottish wrestling, is when I started wrestling training, I was 11, 12, like really young. And it was...
That is young.
I don't know if you know Glasgow, but Linwood is like in the middle of nowhere, and it's a shithole, like most of Scotland. But it's it's literally an industrial estate with like 4 flats. There's nothing else there. And I had a wrestling training school there, and I used to go there. I used to tell my mum I was going to go like work in a shop because she didn't want me to do wrestling. Then even when I was working, I was doing it and stuff. But that was like that was like the closest school to me. And then it was like the SWA used to give the ring to train in. And if the SWA was working that weekend, you had no ring. You were just like stoating around in this wee industrial, if you were lucky, in this wee industrial estate kind of place, just like getting just... like, why am I here? Like, sometimes it was like, I hope, but like seeing it come from that to now, then obviously you've got like the ICW stuff in the city centre of Glasgow and Respect Pro Wrestling, like all these guys that have got insane training facilities, and I'm like, as an industrial estate with like behind a Chinese, and all these people have got like fitness stuff and shit. It's weird.
It was the same for me, Mom. When I first broke in 2010, we didn't have our own like proper training school at WrestleZone. We were just like in a scout hut, and we'd only get the ring maybe once a month if we were lucky, you know, on like show days and stuff. So we were just on like training mats and stuff. And then we've got our own school now with like the rings up all the time. We've got gym equipment, we've got a promo room, and it's just crazy now because it's like when I first started, we didn't have any of that. But it's good though because it's like the wrestling scene's improving. I think in Scotland especially because schools are now more equipped, and you know generally like as times went on, the schools themselves have gotten better, and you know better training, better facilities. So it's really cool for guys getting in now that they've got that sort of like they're coming into wrestling training and they've already got those things that we didn't have necessarily all the time. And I think that's helped a hell of a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man, I think it's insane the talent that's coming in now. Like you're saying, promo room. Like the promo room where I was the toilet. I mean, like they just shut the door and it was like a white wall behind you. It was, and if you wanted a fancy poster, you had to bring it yourself and stuff. The toilet would freeze in the winter and shit like that. Like it would. So when like people are like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to training. I'm like, how? I would be there. I'd go live there. That's like better than my house. Like I had a poor fucking terrible time trying to get there. You had on a bus and then you're there all day. And like you says as well, like when you had no ring, people forget how hard it is to train wrestling without a ring. It's really
it's you can't replicate a ring. Like you know, like you can be on like gym mats all you want, or like crash pads or whatever, but you can't replicate ropes, turnbuckles, or like it's like just spacing in the ring. You know what I mean? Like you know, for like feeding and selling and bumping and whatever. Having a ring is crucial. And the kids that are coming in through our school now, they've got the ring like every day of the week. It's awesome. And I was like, I'd get it maybe once a month. So, yeah, I'm envious.
It's I'm on the same board as you, but especially when I see people that are younger than me that I've had on this podcast, and they're like, "Oh, I'm getting this and getting that," and I'm like, "Fucking dick, man!" When I had to like, in fact, like, when I was getting into it as well, we had to like phone places to be like, can I work with you or email them? Like, and nobody answered the email back. Obviously, before 2015, nobody got back to you in emails, so it was such a shit like time. Like, no, it wasn't a shit time. It was good. I liked obviously wrestling.
It was different, very different. Different time now. Like, I mean, like everything's much more accessible these days, isn't it?
Which is just showing our age, man, making us sound really old. But no, man, I think
some days
I
feel really old,
especially with the sore backs that kick in, isn't it?
Knees are the worst for me. Knees are the worst. Man, my knees are.
I've been doing these challenges every month this year, so it's I started in May, so I'm doing May to May, and it's like try to push the human body to extend. So like this month was 20,000 continuous exercises, so it took like 17 hours, just over 17 hours, which is it was 5,000 push-ups, 5,000 sit-ups, 5,000 lunges, and 5,000 squats, and I've had before that was a camping trip, which is like 35-mile walk run ish. and then a 50-mile walk and kind of run as well the month before that.
Yeah.
My shins are gone. Like, I don't have shins anywhere, Matt.
I do not envy you in the slightest.
I feel like I pick my leg up and it just is like that. And I'm like, what's this? How am I meant to walk in this? Because every time I go like walk to the shops or something, my shins are just like going to sit down. What are you doing? Which is
yeah, leg day is rough. I hate leg day.
Do you know what? I could have just went, you know what, I'm going to just change my workouts. That would have made more sense. But I was like, you know what, because of COVID, I want to like push myself. I don't know why I'm doing it. I could have just done 1 month. I've just continuously done it since like March, May or some whenever it is I've done it. But it's no fun, but it's good. That's the point as well. Like, I try and do stuff like body weight stuff and like outside things that you don't need to have like an actual gym for.
Like a gym for, yeah.
And show people that you can still exercise and work without that. And I think that's something that professional wrestlers coming up just now forget. Like, you don't need to have all the fancy everything and like clean and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can make things work, and it's a good and bad, pros and cons for both sides into like.
Well, for me, like, because I've had like some injuries and stuff to my shoulders and my knees and stuff, I find like sometimes like going to the gym, like, because I go to the gym every week, at least like 4 times a week. But sometimes I find like some of the machines hurt. Like, for instance, like I can't do the cycling machine. My knees are just like completely shot. I try to cycle on my knees, it just hurts. So I try and find more like natural movements. So like I don't do much weights. I do more like I like kettlebell because it's more of a natural thing. Like, you can do more natural movements with it. I find that helps me a lot more just with carrying like injuries and stuff, and you know. So yeah, I like to go to the gym for certain things that I can't do at home. But at home, I like to do stuff like kettlebells and stuff, more natural sort of movements and exercises that just don't hurt my body as much. Just because I'm trying to like prolong myself as long as I can, you know what I mean? So, and wrestling's a tough gig, so.
Man, I hope you mean prolong like in wrestling, not just like prolong, like just. I'm just
like prolong in wrestling. If I can make it 40 in wrestling, I'm considering it a win.
And if you make it to 40, that's over the Scottish life expectancy. So,
well, then it's a double win. You know what I mean?
No, man, I think it's just so weird. Like, it's pros and cons for both sides. Obviously, similar kind of coming up through wrestling, being in terrible shitholes, like good shitholes. Because I always like to. I used to go to an MMA gym that was a good shithole. It was a really the toilet would freeze up, the pipes would freeze. Nothing would work in the winter. You had to like wear coats and stuff to train. But it was like the people have been in the UFC, like Joanne Calderwood and Robert Whitefield. All these guys have went to the UFC. It's just like such a cool wee gym. It's still like, there just now, but it's pros and cons to both sides. Like, that got more money because the UFC, and it's like more
that's it.
funding and stuff. I've liked it back when it was like grungier. That's the word that I was trying to look for. Grungy,
yeah.
But I think
grassroots level, you know.
It's good to see how much obviously talent's coming up via, especially the Scottish scene. It's just insane. Like, Nikki Cross just won the championship on
women's title. Yeah, that was cool.
Yesterday, it's Tuesday. I forgot that.
Yeah.
So that
crazy,
was...
like, you know, and as well, it's like she went from being like off TV and stuff to now the women's champ in like a few months just because she pitched an idea, and I'm like, that's really cool.
Hey man, I think it's just one of those
idea. You know what I mean?
I think it's one of those things as well. Like, it's just people are starting to recognise how talented like the areas from outside of sports entertainment is. Like, Scotland, England, Spain, Denmark have got really good wrestling scenes, and people are starting to. Obviously, social media has helped a lot with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like up in Aberdeen, like we've got like a really talented crew up in Aberdeen, but like because of where we are, like we're sort of like on the road up here a little bit, and it's like for a long time, obviously, like Glasgow's been like the biggest hotbed for Scottish wrestling. Like I said, and like that's Edinburgh, like that sort of area has been more like the hot. But up in Aberdeen, like we've been having some good shows up here. We've got some really great talent, and it feels like it's only really now that folk are really starting to pick up on that there's like a really good scene up our way. Yeah, well, like I've been with WrestleZone for 10 years, and WrestleZone for 10 years has been putting on quality shows, and and had great talent and great matches. It just feels like for a long time, it just sort of like not. It's just people weren't as aware of it as maybe they could be, if that makes sense. And it's nice to see that up our way, things are starting to like. There's more notice being taken of the stuff we're doing up in Aberdeen as well. So that's really cool. Because we've got a really good group of talented young guys as well coming up. Like Connor Ingalls, Caleb Valhalla, like they're all like really, really talented dudes. Dino Del Monte, and it's all guys that I'm like, if they can just get some opportunities to really like shine here and in other places, the world's their oyster sort of thing. So that's cool.
Definitely, man. There is a bunch. It's just everywhere into. I know, obviously, Glasgow's this big city. It's where all the kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's like the central and everything else is sort of like around it. You know what I mean? Just the way it is.
But the wrestling scene outside as well, like Ayrshire, you've got Edinburgh, you've got Aberdeen, there's just a bunch of cool wee promotions coming along.
Yeah, man.
And I think it's just going to
really good stuff,
And the talent coming through as well, like you just said there, like it's just you can go look at every single one of the shows and pick 10 guys that could be in WWE or AEW or wherever you want to be tomorrow. Like they're just world class, and you can just go watch them for like £7 a ticket. You know what I mean? That's insane.
and the thing is as well, like you look at guys like Drew and like and Viper and Nikki, and it's like that's three of like were the biggest names in Scottish wrestling, and now on a national stage, on a worldwide stage, people are seeing how good they are, and it's a good representation of like there's a lot of talent in Scotland. Because like I feel like the UK scene, England for a long time got a lot of like notoriety and stuff. It felt like Scotland didn't really get that. So it's really cool to see like Scottish talent really starting to come through and be like, yeah, there's some really, really, really world class talent up in Scotland if you look. You know what I mean?
Definitely, man. I think as well it's so weird. Like obviously England's like a bigger country. A lot more people know about England and like what stuff happens in Scotland. But when we do get recognition, it's like it's an insane wrestling scene here, and everybody kind of knows each other. Have heard of somebody that knows, or if you've been on a show, they've heard of that show. Like there's stuff that's kind of it goes around, which is cool to see, and especially people like you say, Drew, Viper, Nikki, they're up there, and it's like they've all started in the same wee grungy places that we started in. So it's imagine where people are going to be with all the cool equipment and better stuff than we had. Which is, I just think it's insane. Like you've had a Scottish world champion and it's, people might not like WWE, but they're the biggest wrestling company in the world.
That's it. I'm right now. I'm not the biggest fan of like WWE's product, right? Just whatever. Like wrestling's so subjective anyway. Like there's no right and wrong. It's like I personally I don't like it. It's not for me. And I was a big WWE fan as a kid growing up. Like it was, but then as I started to get older and started to discover like New Japan, All Japan, Noah, like all these other promotions and stuff, my taste changed, which is fine. But like at the end of the day, WWE is still like the biggest promotion in the world. And you ask any wrestling fan or any wrestler, it's like, what's your dream? They'll always say work for WWE because it's WWE.
When I've had people on here and they say like, oh, just to like go to Japan or like just travel Europe, and I'm like, but even when I was 11, I was like, work for WWE. That has to be the goal of everybody because the minute you get there, the contract that you get has got you set for life. Do you know what I mean?
That's it.
But a couple of 100,000 a year that in Scotland, that's like, what, triple them or quadruple the. I don't know what the minimum wage is in Scotland, so whatever it would be, but I think it's insane that people.
A lot more than that.
People forget like it's like it is a dream for we're a tootsie country. We've got 5 million people, and like even when we went to the Euros at Just Bang, I'm not a big football fan, but I normally watch the Euros and World Cup. But it was still cool to see our country there. Like we're just happy to be there. We're not here to win it. I don't want to win this thing because then if we win it, we need to do a parade and stuff, and it's like, no, we're just here for a good time. So it's a free beers going for anybody here because I'm there for that. But apart from that, we're not. And it's just good to see like Scottish sports getting recognised a lot more because when you got like like you say, it's like Drew being the world champion, Nikki, the women's world champion. You've got Viper in a good position, which isn't a dough drop. Shouldn't we call it dough drop, whatever it's called. It's like it's terrible, but at least you're getting no in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, these guys are insane, like good.
Yeah, that's it. And it's like, at the end of the day, like, if you've worked your entire career to get to WWE, you're not going to let a name get in the way, really, are you? You know, you've sacrificed so much to get there. You know, it's like, oh, we want to call you a different name. It's like, cool, whatever. Like, I've worked my ass off to get here. Just whatever. You know what I mean?
It's just the opportunity as well, isn't it? Like, it's a shit name, but then you know eventually she's going to be like, that's not my name. She goes into a feud, showing how good she is and keeps building. But people just, that's the other thing I was going to ask is, what's something that we'll start with the negative side, so then we can move to positives. What's something that you dislike about today's wrestling? For me, it's how much there is of it, because I think there's far too much. It's oversaturated, and also that people don't get time to play it. Like, get 6, 7, even a year. Like, give it some time to enjoy it.
So, like, for me, in terms of like wrestling, like it's great that there is so much out there because there's lots of places for people to work. But the negative side to that is, like you say, nothing really feels special or big because it's so oversaturated. There's so much of it. Like, I'm a huge wrestling fan, but I don't watch everything because like there's not enough hours in the week. You know what I mean? Like, but for me, like, so when it comes to wrestling, right, I love the old school, like, you know, those big title fights, you know, like those big money fights, and like, you know, you get pay-per-view main event, and it felt like this huge deal. You don't really get that now. Everything just sort of feels like it's just another, you know, chapter in the story, or it's just another match for the sake of having a match. I miss those special, like, you know, like you go back to like the late 80s, you know, Flair and Steamboat felt like a huge deal, or Hogan and Andre, and then the 90s, Sting and Flair and Rock and Austin, like it felt like huge matches that you had to see. Like, no matter what, you had to see this match. That's not really a thing now, really. And it goes hand in hand because there's so much wrestling, there's so much matches, so much content. You don't really get those sort of those big fights anymore, those big fight feels. I miss that as a wrestling fan. Like, I miss that sort of like excitement in the air, like, oh my god, what's going to happen? You know, this match is, you just don't get that. It's like, it's the way wrestling is now, right? You know, like I don't like scripted promos. Like I love, like, you know, when you see a guy cut a promo and you can tell it's organic and you can tell it's from the heart and they believe it. So because they believe it, the electricity hits across. Even if you're watching on TV, it hits you. You're like, this is legit. Like I feel this. Scripted promos, you don't get that because it's like they're just reading off an auto cue or they're reading off a bit of paper. It just doesn't translate well. And I feel like a lot of the times in wrestling, that emotional connection is no longer there now. You know, and it's, you know, it's the nature of the beast, whatever, things have changed, and, you know, which is fine, but it feels like a lot of the times in wrestling now, you watch a match and it's like, yeah, it was a good match, but you don't feel anything. Like, you're aware it was a good match, and, you know, this, you know, spots were done well, and, you know, the psychology was sound, but it doesn't make you feel. And I feel like wrestling without that emotional connection is never going to be as good as it should be. You know, and I'm a big sucker for that. Like, you need that emotional connection to get people like really invested. You know, like, I don't know if you watched Money in the Bank on Sunday.
Yeah.
The only match that I felt that was Edge and Roman. Like, it felt like a huge deal, and I could feel like there was a connection from the audience to Edge and Roman, and vice versa. They didn't have to do anything. Like, Roman looked at the crowd and they were showering with boos, and it was a great match. Like, a great match because it made me, like, for a split second, forget that I was a wrestler and I was just watching as a fan. I'm like, this is ace because I'm invested in this, and that's very rare to find. I find nowadays, you know. So that's like my biggest, like, not negatives, but things I miss, if that makes sense, from pro wrestling as a whole just now.
Definitely, man. I think is like, if you think back to things that you remember the most, like even like WrestleMania 19 is one I always bring up about emotion, and that's Hogan versus Vince McMahon. Like,
I love that match. I
So
love
they-
that match.
but they-
It's not a 5-star classic, but Vince and Hogan, I loved it. It was tremendous. The bit where like Vince like pulls himself up from the apron, he's just covered in blood. And he's like, got, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome. That's pro wrestling.
But that's like,
awesome.
That's more emotion than anything, because both those guys at that time aren't really working great. Or like Rock, Hogan, like he says, you've got
18 Rock and Hogan is incredible. You know?
But like you said, that's emotion. Like you can buy into the fact that these people, or like if you've got two people like Shawn Michaels and Triple H, their feud that they had every match, you actually believe that they hated each other because they were just like trying to destroy each other, which is selling, isn't it? That's part of a lost art of wrestling, is being able to sell the emotion instead of selling. Like people say, like Hogan wasn't good in ring. It's like I wasn't good, but you got people to buy.
That's it. And the thing is, like, don't get me wrong, like I love in ring work. Like I love crisp, like spectacular in ring work, but it has to have that emotional connection. Like it has to have, like for instance, like fair enough. Like not every match on a show or a pay-per-view or TV can be like a heated match or like boatloads of stories. Sometimes a cold match with two good wrestlers. Fine, great. You still need, like, in your main events, I feel like that real emotional connection, that real, like, emotional storytelling. Otherwise, it's just another match. And the way, like, growing up as a wrestling fan and, like, starting to wrestle, it's like, to me, a main event should never feel like just a match. It should feel like the main event, because otherwise, why is it on last? It needs to be the match that people are invested in, want to come to see. Otherwise, you're just having a card full of just matches for the sake of it.
Definitely. I mean, if you think back when we were younger, the way they built cards as well was you had like the cruiserweights and that at the start that do all the cool stuff to get you to...
And it got you excited. It got you hyped. It wasn't like you weren't emotionally invested to the level of like, but they did their spot on the card. You got hyped. I can't wait for what's next, because these guys just blew my socks off with what they did, and it was thrilling. Great, what's next? And that was a great role for the cruiserweights. Like I loved watching cruiserweight matches back in the day because it was awesome.
You know what I mean? Like you've got
that. It's awesome.
Then you'd probably get like I love the like you say, it's like you've got Mysterio. When it was Billy Kidman was in WWE, he was putting on some killer matches on a SmackDown with Paul London as well, which is you had like all those guys. Then you had tag team wrestling, and then you had your main events where the stories were told. The bigger stories, obviously, you still had stories down there, but the ones that got people more emotion was at the top. I just feel like you said. I feel it's a little bit of a lost art at the minute. But a lot of people always just go, we kind of bring it back because of social media, and it's like, well, that's untrue. Look at Roman Reigns. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of his in-ring work, but I'm a fan of the guy. He's a great storyteller, and that's what wrestling is at the end of the day. It's just, like you say, you can watch a classic match that's got great wrestling in it, but what does it matter? Like, if you show somebody that out of context, you'd be like, that was kind of cool. Who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? But if you watch Roman Reigns against Edge, for example, you're like, bad guy, good guy. That's the story. I mean, it's the same old story. David and Goliath. They've got a big bad guy, and it works. It still works to this day. Just people are too scared to run with what works for some reason.
And the thing is as well, like if you look at wrestling, it's always in cycles. For a long time, huge men were the in thing. Then people got bored and they wanted the smaller, flippy sort of like in-ring dudes. And now it seems to be like guys love big horse fights again nowadays. If you notice, like it's come back full sight. It's just what happens. Wrestling goes in cycles. You love big horse fights, and then after a while, it's like, I don't want to see any more horse fights. I want these smaller. It's just the way it goes. It's the nature of the beast. And that's fine. And like to me, wrestling's at its best when it's a variety show. I don't want every match in the card to do the same thing. Otherwise, I get bored. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm a wrestling fan, but if I'm getting like 3 hours of the same thing, I'm like, okay, well, give me something different. And that's where like you say, it's like knowing your role and building cards and like having variety and different styles of matches. That's where the excitement is.
Definitely, man. I think that's just like. It is a bit of a lost art at the minute as well. And like you say, everything's in a cycle, and that goes for viewerships as well. Everybody forgets, like, WWE's been lower than what they're at just now. Like, they've been
Yeah.
really bad. I done a watch along for the 1993 Raws, and Jesus God, they were so bad. I stopped doing it. I literally went, I can't complete this. I tapped it because it was so bad. Like, it was just, it was horrible. If you want to see somebody cry, go look at that, because I just sat there like, what am I watching? This is terrible.
I can do you one better. Me and my missus, we try to sit down and watch all the 95 Raws.
Man, I'm actually... No, it's 96. I'm doing like the Monday Night Wars just now. I did try and do those 95, but that is.
Don't get me wrong, there's some cracking like in-ring stuff in 95, but the gimmicks and stories, it's just like, oh my God, like, what are you doing?
See,
like,
the good in-ring stuff.
Guy, and I was like,
the good in-ring stuff from 95 is just gone in 93. You know, like, I'm sure you've seen it. Like, it's just characters. There's just characters. Like, just get them. You know what? Clowns. Let's get them more clowns. It's like, why are we doing this?
Like, what I don't understand was, like, obviously, because I was born in 93, so I didn't see like any of the 93 stuff growing up. I've just watched it retroactively. But like, what was the fascination with job-based gimmicks? You know what I mean? Like, let's have a clown, let's have a bin man, let's have, you know, a race car driver. I'm like, what? What are we doing? Like, I don't watch a bin man wrestle. Like, I want to watch wrestlers wrestle. You know, it's like, fuck me.
When you go back and watch it, you're like,
huge.
Why are they doing this? Like, it is pretty, like, because I was born in 91, so like, obviously wasn't watching wrestling when I was 2 or something like that. But I was go back and watch it. You're like, whoa, this is terrible. It's like, this isn't.
Well, it was King of the Ring 94. Like, because like when I first got into wrestling, I loved everything wrestling. So I'd buy like DVDs of like older wrestling. And I bought King of the Ring 94 on like, you know, like the tagged classics DVD.
Aye.
And I stuck it on, and like Bret and Diesel had a match. That's really fucking cool. Like, you know, I like Kevin Nash, I like Bret Hart. And then the main event was like Roddy Piper versus Jerry Lawler, and I'm like, weird. It's weird. Like, if that match had been 10 years before, it probably would have been fucking awesome. But like 94, I'm like, that's weird. Like, it just, Piper's the face, Lawler's the heel. I'm like, it's just a weird fucking match. Like, you know what I mean? Especially following like Owen Hart versus 1-2-3 Kid and like Bret and Diesel. I'm like, this is just.
It's just a weird.
Weird time.
Weird time.
Some of the WCW stuff in that period as well was just.
The worst thing with the WCW stuff is some of them, like the Hollywood Blondes, are one of my favourite tag teams ever, and I love watching Pillman and Austin work, especially with Austin when he's got his hair. I thought it was amazing.
Austin was great. Austin was great back in the day. Like, he could fucking go. I mean, he could go like when he hit like the big time Stone Cold, but like watching him actually like do mat wrestling and like wrestling spots rather than just brawling was awesome. Austin was great. Like,
but then you've got, like, I'm just trying to think of some, I don't know, some random like terrible WCW at that point match. But then you've got like the Hollywood Blondes. You're like, how can you have this good wrestling, people cheer, and this?
But the thing is, though, right? Like, I don't think when you grow up with, like, I grew up in the Ruthless Aggression era, right? And I'm very fond of it. Like, you know, I've got like rose tinted glasses. But when you look back and watch some of it, like, for instance, right? How the fuck can you have Shawn Michaels and Triple H tear it up and have a great fucking main event for the World Championship, and on the same show you've got Gene Snitsky kicking a baby? I'm like, what? Like, what? Like, you've got all this great stuff, and then some weird, just weird. And I'm like, who thought this was a good idea? Like,
man, at least
odd. Like, wrestling's fucking weird, man. Like, for every great thing in wrestling, there's like 3 or 4 just awful, terrible things. Like, weird.
And 3 or 4 is the minimum into it. Like, it's it's like, why is this being wrote? But then that's the beauty of wrestling. Like, you could have somebody kidding on their kicking a baby and have this great classic match at the top of the show. Yeah. But then nowadays, I think they've just lost that like. Yeah. Like, let's just that guy's going to kick a Wayne. Let him kick a Wayne, because that'll get him some heat. You know what I mean? I think they've lost that like, today, which is like,
it's weird. Wrestling's a very strange fucking thing.
It's
fucking weird.
when I used to wrestle, people go, so what is it you kind of do? And I'd like, kind of like WWE, kind of just because they know that, but I'm like, I'm not going to explain it because. You know, like, is a night suit good? And I'm like, aye, the night suit are good. What do you do? Let's you need to, yeah, just forget it. But I hate when like we try and explain wrestling, what you actually do in wrestling, and to somebody that doesn't do it, you're like, why do you do that? And I'm like, I don't know why I do it. I like it.
Yeah. Well, the worst was like, if like I've got mates that are like they don't mind wrestling, like they know I'm a wrestler, but they're not like super into it. And it was like the other show when Miz got eaten by zombies, and they're like, one guy messaged me, why the fuck do you like wrestling? At that point, I'm like, I don't even know how to defend the fact I like wrestling, because even I was like, that's fucking retarded. Like here's a fully grown ass man getting eaten by zombies. Yep.
Especially with the great talent, and it's Damian Priest. Like, this guy could be a world champion, and you've just got he's in a zombie match.
By zombies.
You're texting yourself, why the fuck do I like wrestling? I don't know. Somebody help me.
The thing is, like, I love wrestling, right? You know, I'm willing, like, I understand wrestling, and, you know, it's fine. Like, you're willing to look past certain things, but, like, I was watching the pay-per-view, saw the zombies, went, you know what? I'm off to bed, turned it off. I was like, I'll check out the rest of the morning. I'm done. I'm good.
I review the shows, obviously, part of the YouTube channel is reviewing it, but, like, I turned it off, went to bed, and went, I'll come back to that in the morning because...
So it's like, I'll deal with this later. I'm
no,
good.
just put it away then. Just put it away, put it away. Then wake up in the morning, you know, I must have dreamed it. It must have been a dream. Kind of it.
It's like whenever something like that happens, it's not like a case of like I flip out, go, this is awful. I'm just like, you know, I'm done. I'm done for the night. I've had enough wrestling. I'll check out some more tomorrow. You know, I'm just, you know.
It's like you know, like YouTube home, you go too far in, you're like, wait, I'll turn the telly off, I'm on the Illuminati stuff. That's when you get zombies eating a guy.
Well, it's like my kid, right? My kid's 11, so he fucking loved that. He was like, "Oh my god, did you got ate by zombies?" I'm like, "Well, I'm glad you liked it." You know, that was his favorite thing in the whole show. I'm like, really? Is that okay? Whatever. The zombies, okay.
My kids aren't big on wrestling. They're no big wrestling fans, but obviously I'm like, watch wrestling. Like I have it on when they're in the room, like put it on just so they can watch it. They love the classic stuff like Sting, Taker, all the cool stuff. But the one thing that made my son and daughter both pay attention was that zombie thing, and I was like, all the matches that I've put on for you, and this is it.
This is zombies. Fucking zombies.
Like, go to your bed, leave me alone.
We're done. Go on. Yeah.
You don't get wrestling.
Well, my kid was into wrestling when he was like really little, and he used to come to shows. And then when I turned heel, he stopped coming because he didn't like people booing me. I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, I don't like it, so I'm not going to back to any more shows. I'm like, all right, whatever. Yeah. And then like as he's gotten older, he's just sort of like outgrown wrestling a little bit, which is fine, you know. Unless zombies.
I think that's just It's obviously people that are into wrestling, like fans and stuff like that. It's like an echo chamber when you've been, obviously, when you've done it, you know, behind the curtain. Like us guys, we kind of know it, and people that do it, like commentating, can kind of see behind the curtain. Then the weird point is doing that is like you get the work, like the in-ring work, but then you can also see it for the fan perspective. And then sometimes when the fans are saying some stuff, you're like, why are you shouting? It's not that bad. Like the zombie thing, no, the zombie thing, that was terrible. Everybody should
terrible.
Just like stop that. But some stuff like when they're shouting about like I don't know, like for instance, Monday Karrion Kross got beat by Jeff Hardy. Sorry if I'm ruining this for you. And it was like in 2 minutes or something, and people are pure moaning, and I'm like, well, that is shit. But there's going to be a story to it. Let it progress instead of just like WWE's killed this guy.
Yeah, we'll see. Right, that annoys me because that's the instant reaction. Oh, he's fucking dead. I'm like, nah, just wait to see how it goes. Like, chances are they're building to a rematch because, like, I'm pretty sure Hardy used like the bottom rope or something to roll him up, and it was like a quick, like, cheeky pin or whatever. Chances are they're building a rematch where Karrion will just like decimate or something. I'm guessing. But it's like I think that's the thing now is like even like on like indie shows and stuff or like smaller like our level of shows, like it's almost like fans sometimes are looking for that instant gratification. It's like sometimes you just need to wait. Like sometimes it's just, you know, just wait and see how it plays out. You know, and I think that's it now. Everyone's like, if one thing happens that they didn't expect or see coming or they didn't like, that's it. It's the end of the world. And I'm like, just chill out. Just chill.
I think it's a very Scottish thing as well, is like shit goes wrong and it's just like just let's see what happens. I mean, like we're not serious people. We don't take life that serious. Look where we live. You know what I mean? It's melting just now, and it's probably going to be 8 feet of snow in a couple of weeks. So it's like
just roll with the punches. It's fine. Just take
like
it.
you just need to take every day when it comes, because who knows what's going to happen. But I think it's like you said, it's a weird time in wrestling. Also, going back to the zombie thing, why is it Miz in a wheelchair? Why are they not playing this up? He's in a wheelchair now. It's like he's just been ate by
soaker. Is it like dripsticks they got, or like a super soaker? I'm like, all right, whatever.
When that comes on, I switch off, man. Even though I'm meant to review it, and I literally type the Miz stuff, like, and I just in the review, I'm like, oh, the Miz did something, because I'm not watching that. I'm like, nah. I think he's okay. Like, he's a good wrestler. He's done good work. Obviously, he's been there for a long time, whatever. But come on, the zombies. Surely somebody must have spoke up about that.
I give the Miz all the credit in the world, because you look at all the stupid shit he's had to put up with, and he's made it work, and he's still over, and he's still like, he's still it's like, I give him so much credit, because he's put up with so much shit.
That's the thing as well.
I like Miz. I think Miz is great. You know what I mean?
He made that work. Like, he somehow made the zombies work. Like, I don't know.
I don't know if anyone else could have, but Miz managed to pull it off.
And when people try and justify, like, oh, it was an art piece for wrestling. What are you talking about? It was guys dressed shittily as zombies. It's not an art piece. Kids up here cheering, and I'm just like, stop it. But heading into the end part of the podcast is, well, in fact, I sent you those questions. I've just remembered I've not even asked any of them. So heading to the end, we'll go for, there's 3 questions, 2 that I sent you, which you don't need to check, but 1 that I never send to anybody is because I like to watch you in pain try to answer this. So people either get it straight away, or they just go, you're such a cunt. So either way, it's fine. You can call me a cunt and get it straight away if you want, but the first one is, I know you said you had a top 5 wrestling list, so it's normally who's your favourite wrestler, but tell us your top 5. What's your top 5 of all time?
So, my top 5 is Shawn Michaels, Christian Cage, CM Punk, Sting, and the last one always differs. It's either going to be Edge or Randy Savage. It just depends. So 4 are always about the same, and then it just flip flops. But they're always about my top 10. So yeah, that's the guys that I really like.
Man, pretty.
Just because
it's a list that's kind of similar, like no similar styles, but you can kind of see why they're in your top 5. Like mine goes like all over the place.
Oh, why? Who's your top 5 then?
Well, so Sting obviously has to be up there because I'm the worst mark ever for him. Then it would be Bret Hart, AJ Styles.
Oh, nice, yeah.
Taker, and then I like you. The 5 changes. It literally. Like, there's not just one person in that 5. It's just it changes.
But I would just from here and there.
Would probably say, and this is one that's like a way out there, and it's because I seen him live. I got to like participate in a show with him, and it was like a really cool experience. And it's Sterling James Keenan, who most people know is Corey Graves now.
Corey. Yeah,
but back down when he was Sterling James Keenan, the guy was putting on 5-star matches across the world. But just because I normally put him in there, but like you said, Randy Savage goes in there, Edge.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big fan of Kenta Kobashi. Like, Kenta Kobashi is my favourite Japanese wrestler, so he'd be in my top 10. I love Kenta Kobashi. Like, because what I love about him is it's like the match style was so different and so like believable. Like, he was just gritty and it was hard hitting, and like I love the Japanese. Like, Minoru Suzuki's in my top 10 as well. I love Minoru Suzuki. So like my top 5 is sort of like who I grew up watching, so I've got like that very nostalgic like connection with. And then the rest of my top 10 is more the wrestlers I discovered once I started wrestling and appreciate them for different reasons.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's like my top 5 will always be as a kid who I loved and idolized. And then the other 5's more like, okay, as a wrestler, who are other guys that I appreciate and, respect and amazed by, as in-ring talent, So,
I normally have like a couple of different top 5 lists now. Like, you can't be like, that's the best thing about wrestling as well. You can, if you load up the WWE Network, you sit down and you go, you know what, I'm going to watch one wrestling match tonight, and then before you know it, you're like
Yeah.
10 pay-per-views deep, you're watching like 1956 wrestling. Like, oh, this is so weird, but people are so into it, and you're like, why am I doing this? And that's what, as much as we can moan about today's product or how it doesn't relate to you, it's what we love, isn't it? Like, you're going, it's like a bad relationship with Monday Night Raw as well. You're going to go back to it.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you don't like it, but you're still going to watch it.
Aye,
You
no,
know what I mean?
it's terrible. Don't watch Monday Night Raw, but I'm going to watch it. Aye, of course.
Exactly.
I'm not going to miss it. It was something good.
You watch it, but I'll watch it. Yeah, that's it. And it's always that case. Like, it's always been the thing with WWE. They could be on like a slump, and then they pull something amazing out their arse, and you're like, I just missed something amazing. Like, spoilers, when Cena came back at the end of Money in the Bank, I'm like, well, son of a bitch. I'm like, God damn it.
Look at that Raw just there. Like,
yeah,
you had Keith Lee
that was a
coming back.
hell of a yeah.
It was the way I do when I reviewed it today was a lot of surprises, like good surprise moments filled. So it was like now when you put one of those dots up and then you put the string, so it makes like the wee loops. It was like when we were doing other stuff, it was like a lull, but then it was like had obviously seen opening the show because you were like, so why did they follow? Whatever Cena was doing, they shouldn't have followed it with anybody. He should have been like towards the end or something because it's.
I guess it was that, like, they know, though. They were like, if we want people to tune in Raw, we get Cena first, and they're going to come. And then we stick something else on, they might stay. So instantly, it's like, we'll put John Cena at the start of the show. Here they come. There's fans like, I want to see what John Cena. And then hopefully it's that whole, like, knock-on effect of, okay, well, what else have you got to show me?
But then right after that, you had that Jackson Riker and Elias, whatever they call him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, it would have just been like, I am away again. But you've got like Cena, Goldberg, which is much. I don't think Goldberg should be in the ring at this point, but Bobby Lashley's got to kill him. So I'm happy with that.
So, like, I get why they're putting Goldberg in there. I get it. Like, nostalgia draws, he's going to draw a crowd. But, like, for me, it's like, like, you know, like, don't get me wrong, like, when he came back in, like, 2016 with Lesnar, I was fucking hyped. I was like, cool, haven't seen Goldberg in a long time, this will be awesome. But it's that sort of law of diminishing return sort of thing, you know, it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I just don't really care about Lashley versus Goldberg.
It was,
you know, it just doesn't do it for me, you know, but it's fine. There's probably lots of people out there that are very, very excited for that match, so that's fine, you know.
Goldberg gave me the moment of my childhood is dead. Like, the feeling it was Goldberg versus Taker. That was when I was like,
oh yeah, that was a tough one.
That's me that's me old. Like, that's my childhood has just died in front of me.
Well, it's like, for me, it's when I realised like Randy Orton and AJ Styles were in their 40s. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'm getting old because they're old now. Like, what the fuck? To me, like, I still think that AJ Styles is like one of the young guys, but he's been around for like 20 years. Like, you know what I mean? So, like, fuck.
He was in WCW, which blows my mind. Man. I'm like,
it's crazy, is it? You know,
I was in primary school and been through like having kids and a life and a career and shit, and this guy's still doing the same stuff.
I was only 9 when Randy Orton debuted. I was 9 years old when he debuted. Now he's like 40. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, I'm getting old.
But it's, you know, it's a weird, like, obviously a weird thing getting old, but like you were saying there as well, like with I've totally lost my train of thought. I told you, it's a way to just walk out that side door. But the worst thing about getting old is watching your childhood just die painfully. Like that Goldberg and Undertaker match, which was horrible and very, very hard to watch.
To be fair, like, it was never going to be great. Like, just because, you know, they weren't in a spot in their careers to be having that kind of match. You know what I mean? It's just what it is.
They should have put Sting Taker just standing in the ring with each other. The one that gets me with that
tremendous
is the Mania, Triple H versus Sting, Undertaker versus Bray Wyatt, or whoever it was against. And I'm like, they're on the same card.
Sting. Yeah, it's like, man, just do it.
It's right there, Vince. Can you not just see it? But anyway. What is your favourite event of all time? Now, this could be one you've been on, or it can be, again, a top 5. It doesn't need to be your top 1.
So, if it's like my joint top 2, like in terms of like WWE events or like pay-per-views, would be WrestleMania 19 and WrestleMania 23 for different reasons. Like WrestleMania 19, like that happened before I really got into wrestling. So when I retroactively watched it back, I was like, it was an amazing event. It had everything. You had Michaels, Jericho stealing the show, Austin Rock in their last fucking one-on-one match, Vince Hogan, Lesnar Angle, like just a tremendous show from top to bottom. Mania 23 was like the first WrestleMania that like me and like, because I'd been at wrestling for like quite a while at that point, but my other friends were just really getting into it then. So it was like the first WrestleMania they were super into. And like you had Taker and Batista friggin' killing it. And you had Michaels and Cena having a fucking belt in the main event. And like the whole like 80,000 stadium in Ford Field was it felt huge. It felt epic. And it was like the first stadium show they'd done since 19. So it was like the first show that really felt like this huge event. And it was awesome. So it's like one of my favorite WrestleManias of all time. Maybe my favorite WrestleMania of all time. In terms of my level, WrestleZone did their 5-year anniversary show at Aberdeen Anarchy in 2013. And it's probably my favourite show just because it was the first time WrestleZone had ever ran the Beach Ballroom in Aberdeen. And it's a venue that's very historic with the old like World of Sport Wrestling and things of that nature. And it was like the first time we'd done over 1,000 fans in attendance. And it's the first time we had like imports, like we had Hacksaw, Jim Duggan and Billy Gunn. So it was just a very, very special night. Like, and I wrestled on that card, so that was a plus. For me, it was like I was getting to perform for over 1,000 people, which was awesome. But just the whole event, it just felt like just a huge deal for us as a company and for like us as performers being on that show. So yeah, my favorite two events for watching is Mania 19 and 23, but my favorite event for performing on was Aberdeen Anarchy 2013.
Man, Mania 19 is one that I definitely need to agree with you with because that card is.
Oh, it's an amazing event.
People forget it too much because obviously you've got
straight fire throughout the whole card. Like there's no walls in that card.
People forget it because you've got Mania 18 and Mania 20, which are two huge events, and 19's in the middle, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's just the one Triple H against Booker T," and it's like, but it's like an insane card.
Yeah. You've got it's
Nathan
like,
Drake.
You forget you forget the talent roster that WWE had at that time was insane. You know, when you've got Rock and Austin not closing the show, that shows the depth of your friggin' roster. You know what I mean?
I think it's Mania 23 as well is a fantastic show, man. I remember getting the DVDs used to come with like a collector's tin thing,
the metal tin thing. Yeah,
I remember
getting that as well. Yeah,
I remember sitting down. It's like the 4 disc if you got the Hall of Fame in it. You were sitting there watching it for hours. Had to get up and change it. Obviously showing their age. But it was fantastic, man.
And what I love is like that was legit the first year I thought Taker was going to lose at WrestleMania because Batista had been so well protected and booked that you're like, oh no, I believe Batista can beat him. Like I believe it. And then when he hit with the fucking he ran and power slammed him through the table and Taker's all punch drunk and Batista gets the fucking Batista bomb, like he's fucking done it. And then he kicks out, fucking awesome. And you see the hard cam, the crowd are just going fucking mental, and it was like, oh, that's awesome. That's pro wrestling, man.
It's just wrestling and something with a story, because we'll talk about stories. Crisp wrestling. That if people want to go check something out, it's Kurt Angle Taker for No Way Out in 06.
2006. What a fucking belter.
The SmackDown right after that, they have a rematch. And that one's
just
even better than
it was just as good, if not better. And it was like Taker and Angle were awesome, especially like I loved Angle when he was doing his whole like legit wrestling machine phase. It was like, just awesome. Yeah, like Kurt and Taker in like so like when Taker came back in like Mania 20 as the Dead Man, that began the best run of his career, in my opinion. From 2004 right to like 2013, he was fucking awesome. Like he was awesome before, but like it was a different level. I thought in ring anyway, he hit his peak. You know what I mean?
So it was awesome. 2004 when Mania was, I was still 12 because I was turning 13 that year. I always remember this because I remember when Taker was coming out. I'm a huge Taker fan. He came out against Kane. My last name's Kane, so I always had to be Kane as as a kid. Nightmares coming back, but
childhood logic.
Him coming out, and I was like, this is insane, and just pop him as a kid when he got the win at Mania 20. And obviously that card at Mania 20 as well, you've got like Cena against Big Show, you've got Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and the unspoken one. You've got Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar. Then you've got the Lesnar Goldberg match, which was hilarious to watch because they just got booed at that building so much.
The best thing about that match is just Steve Austin's reactions to it. It's tremendous. Steve's just popping his breath. It's amazing.
He doesn't care at all. But the final question, the one that people will either call me out on or they'll know the answer straight away. So I'll tell you what my answer is after I've told you the question, obviously.
Right.
So if you could add yourself to or replace anybody in any match in history, what would it be? So mine's is always, I would replace Owen Hart against Bret Hart, SummerSlam 94, Blue Cage, only if I was as good as Owen Hart because I'd mess it up.
Well, the one I'd replace Bret Hart for Shawn Michaels at Mania 12. Because to go 60 minutes with HBK in 96 would be... Whew. Now, obviously, I'm nowhere near as good as Bret Hart or ever will be, but as a dream match, that'd be the one I'd pick. Like, because I love... Like, Shawn Michaels is my favourite wrestler of all time. In my opinion, he's the greatest of all time to ever do it. So to go 60 minutes with Shawn at a pay-per-view, yeah, man. That'd be the one for me, but...
It's like... I've had that's you and then the guy I had on before you, Sebastian Day. Exact same answer. It's two answers in a row, but it is a fantastic match, man. It was one of the first matches for Michaels I ever watched. It was like a top 5 Michaels DVD I got. It was a wee portable DVD player I had to watch it on. Nice. Like my mum wouldn't let me watch it on the big TV, as if like I went like she's like, you can't watch it on a big telly, and I'm like, what you so you're sitting there with like something smaller than your phone,
tiny little screen,
trying to watch it. And I remember just watching that, obviously 60 minutes of watching great wrestling on a small TV. People wonder why I've got good eyesight because I can see for miles. I could see this wee bitty thing, but it was just and that was one of the matches that was like, I want to do this for a living. I want to go and try and be a professional wrestler. And it was just great. Obviously, you're not going to go out every night and put on like a Michaels Bret Hart, but
it's the desire to do so, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's like the desire to be able to do it at that level. That's what keeps you driven and keeps you wanting to wrestle. You know what I mean? At least for me, anyway. That's my driving thing, is to be the best every time I can be. You know.
100%. And the worst thing for me is I broke my neck, so I would not allowed to be a kind of wrestle anymore. I can't take much bumps and stuff like that. But it's just one of those things. Like I felt like I loved with wrestling for a while, for like 3 years, because I was like took my ball and went home. Obviously, I had life going on, like I had issues in life, but I took my ball and went home. I was like, I broke my neck. I can't watch it anymore because I can't do it. But I've obviously grew up, and I wouldn't say I've grew up. I've got a wrestling channel talking about stuff on YouTube.
But it's hard though. If you get an injury, it's hard to it's very. I like fucked my knee pretty badly, and so I couldn't wrestle for about 2 years actually. I just stopped watching for 8 months because I couldn't do it. So I was like, if I can't do it, I don't want to watch it because then it's And then eventually, I was over time, like that was in 2014. Then when I heard Sting was wrestling Triple H, I guess I'm watching wrestling again. Sting and Triple H WrestleMania.
And so, do you have a match on YouTube or anything like that you would want somebody to go check out? The first kind of...
like I've got my most recent match before the world ended was me versus Crusher Crabe, and it's on YouTube for WrestleZone Scotland, and it's one of my favourite matches I've ever had. So if you just want to see anything Zach Dynamite, check that match out. We just go like 20 minutes of just beating the holy hell out of each other. So yeah, I figured into big guys beating the crap out of a little guy and throwing him out like a wet pair of trackies. That's the match for you.
I think that was the match that Crusher Crabe said that you should watch, because I've had them on this podcast as well. So,
it was funny. Quick story. We're putting the match together, and he's like, "So, what do you want to do?" And I was like, "Well, I'll come running off the apron, jump off, and you black hole slam onto the floor." And he's like, "You're fucking insane." I'm like, "Yep." So, yeah, that's in there. I get black hole slammed off the apron to the floor. I hurt as much as you thought it would.
Man,
I landed. I'm like, oh god.
I checked that one out. I think when I had Crusher Crabe on, then I've checked it recently again. There's a few that are out there that are really good. People should go check. You've been in wrestling for a little bit of time. You've up in Aberdeen. People need to realise how good WrestleZone actually is, instead of from
man. WrestleZone's producing some tremendous matches, man.
And it's still got that independent feel to it. No, like some other Scottish wrestling shows, no pointing elbows or anything like that.
Yeah.
Still got that independent grassroots feel that's like
Yeah.
in there with the Scottish people and not being separated. But
Yeah.
definitely, WrestleZone's probably one of my favourite. I'd probably say it's up there with one that I watch in the Scottish scene all the time. But I'm thanks for being on.
WrestleZone's a tremendous company. Yeah, man, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
So I've got your links in the description below. I'll share that match shoot because I've already done it. I'll reshare it again so somebody can check it.
Thank you.
And
Cheers.
I'll tell you the aftercare information when I end the podcast.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.